I'm Rob Thomas with Club and Resort Business, and welcome to another episode of the Club and Resort Talks podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Tropitone. Tropitone manufactures beautifully crafted, time-tested outdoor furniture for the world's most luxurious resorts and hotels. Since 1954, Tropitone has been a leader of high-quality outdoor furniture and decor. Products are manufactured to a commercial grade for hospitality, multifamily, and club markets. Tropitone is headquartered in Irvine, California, with bi-coastal manufacturing in Irvine and Sarasota, Florida. Learn more at Tropitone.com. We got that taken care of. Let's throw it over to Phil Keren, our senior editor. Phil, how's it going?
I'm doing great, Rob. How are you?
Terrific. No complaints. What are
Good.
you seeing in the news this week?
Well, this week I thought, CRB's our acronym, if you will. I thought I'd focus on the R part of CRB this week. We saw some interesting stories from the resort world this past week. Starting in the Midwest, just in time for the 30th anniversary of this resort.
Phil, let me interrupt you. I thought we talked about you doing this in the voice of Elmo.
Oh, and Elmo?
Since we're doing a Sesame Street themed. No, okay.
I
I'm
see.
sorry. Let's get right back to it. Today's sponsored by the letter R.
Sponsored by the letter R. How's that? Is that good?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Sponsored by Elmo and all the gang at Sesame Street. There we go. um, so what was Grand Geneva Resort and Spa in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. In time for their 30th anniversary, they finished a full renovation of meeting facilities. 5 large ballrooms, 4 boardrooms, the ballroom foyer, public restrooms, rooms all equipped with modern technology, contemporary design. They have an evergreen ballroom, has lake views, has a setting for up to 360 guests. Grand ballroom accommodates up to 576 guests. They've all been transformed with new layouts, new decor. There's also the bay boardrooms that host up to 12 guests. They have large screen TVs, a fresh professional design. Sounds great. It's all obviously all this stuff too is going to sort of complement the resort's 358 rooms and suites, which actually they updated last year. So sounds like a great place, Rob, for weddings, graduation parties, other banquets that companies or organizations might have. Obviously, the boardroom space is great for companies hosting meetings, conferences, and retreats. So hats off to the folks there at Grand Geneva Resort and Spa in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Yeah, if you go onto our website and type in Grand Geneva in the search bar, we're loaded. They're constantly in the news. They're doing so much, and this latest bit of renovation covers everything, soup to nuts. Like you say, from the big events right down to a small room with TV and seating for, I don't know, 8 to 10 people or whatever, that you can just do just a little huddle, basically. Grand Geneva's doing it right, and kudos to them.
Absolutely. Agree. Moving down, we're in the Midwest. Now head south to Texas. We seem to be in Texas quite a bit with these. Canyon Ranch Austin in Spicewood, Texas is starting construction this summer here on a 223,000 square foot resort. It's going to have guest lodging, a spa, fitness and dining facilities, a medical clinic, also in different administrative and support functions there as well. They first open a resort, Canyon Ranch. They have multiple resorts around the country. First opened a resort in Tucson in 1979. As I understand it, they also integrate holistic methods and evidence-based treatments from both Western and Eastern traditions to benefit mind, body, and soul. And this Spicewood location, it'll be the 5th Canyon Ranch resort. They also have ones in Massachusetts, Tucson, Arizona, as I mentioned, also one near the Las Vegas Strip, and also Woodside, California. So it should be a great facility, and great to see that they're kind of covering a lot of different geographic areas of our country now.
I'll tell you, Austin, Texas is, it's Spicewood being a suburb of that, is blowing up. It's getting huge. It's the Silicon Valley, the new Silicon Valley. And I think a lot of these companies are leaving California into high taxes for Texas and a friendly rate and lower cost of living. But I'll tell you what, Austin and Canyon Ranch is really going to take advantage of that. influx of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Staying in Texas, the other one I was going to mention today, as far as the resorts, was Horseshoe Bay Resort is going to open a new. They're working on it now. We're going to open a new 3,000 square foot instructional facility, instructional for golf, called Cap Rock Golf Academy. It's going to have 2 indoor bays with TrackMan and Top Tracer technology. We've heard a lot about those brands in the news. They're going to have club fitting services, a club repair room, demonstration area with shafts, grips, and club heads. Players can also go outside one of 8 covered bays that'll feature the same pieces of technology that I just mentioned. Top Tracer technology will be used in the indoor teaching sessions. And I know our story from that's posted at clubandresortbusiness.com. We have the director of golf instruction, Bobby Steiner, is talking about both the plans for this as well as the work he's doing down there. And looks like a great facility. And I imagine, Rob, will keep seeing more of these types of instructional facilities to kind of cash in on the golf boom that we've talked about here on the program many times.
Yeah, that's huge. It's a nice Q&A that we have on the website with Horseshoe Bay. But you go there, it's fantastic. Our friends Kevin and Frisch and Carl Mickelson have been trying to get me down there for a while for a feature story. And I really do need to get down there because they have so much. The golf course was recently renovated. It looks spectacular. They have their summer activities are built around the lake. Which it gets hot down there. So being in the water is certainly a good thing when you're down in Texas. But God bless them. And you're right about the instructional facilities. You get your golfers playing better golf. They're going to play more golf. They're going to spend more time at your facility. So instructional facilities, training facilities are all the rage, and there's a good reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as more people are interested in developing their skills with the game, it's, as you and I know, it's a difficult game to master or even come close to master. So it's great to see that they're doing that, and I'm sure we'll see more of those examples of at other places around the country. And Rob, lastly, I did want to finish with something, and actually be a tip of the hat to a colleague of ours, Charlie Pokagar, senior editor with PMQ Pizza Magazine, wrote a fantastic piece that's on our website at clubandresortbusiness.com. Great piece about how a club in North Carolina is paying tribute to the legacy of Payne Stewart, 2-time U.S. Open champion. As any people who follow the PGA Tour closely, Stewart won the U.S. Open in 1999 when it was played at Pinehurst. He then, sadly, as we know, tragically died in a plane accident 4 months later. Well, Mill Creek Golf Course, a semi-private club in North Carolina, has a display that's paying tribute to Stewart. I think it's fantastic. Includes a golf bag from the Ryder Cup, a memoir that Payne's widow wrote, a photo of Payne Stewart hugging his caddy, Mike Hicks, after Stewart, as we know, famously made that par putt on the final hole to win the 1999 U.S. Open and defeated a young Phil Mickelson at the time. So why is Mill Creek honoring Stewart? Actually, Rob, I'll say this. I'll let folks read the story. I don't want to spoil the whole story. I don't want to sit here and tell the whole story in our podcast, but check it out at clubandresortbusiness.com. You'll find out what Payne Stewart's connection is to Mill Creek. His caddy, Mike Hicks, is a large part of the story too. So I thought it was a great thing because you and I, Rob, are in that same generation. If you're a PGA Tour follower and you're over the age of, I'd say, 40, you definitely remember Stewart's victory at the 1999 U.S. Open. I think next to Tiger Woods' 1997 victory at the Masters, his first victory with the 12-shot win, that's probably the most memorable tournament I've ever watched in golf. It's also memorable for a couple. Obviously, it's memorable for the putt he made to win the championship. But the second thing was Stewart, who at the time was father of 2 children, he congratulated Phil Mickelson on the fact he was about to become a dad for the first time. And of course, that carries a lot of resonance because it's, as we know, final round of U.S. Open always happens on Father's Day. Had a great connection. Of course, becomes more poignant knowing what happened to Stewart 4 months later. But it's a great story that Charlie wrote, and I highly recommend people read it. I had a chance to read it actually this morning before we started here today. And fantastic thing. Check it out at clubandresortbusiness.com.
Yeah, I'm glad Charlie took a little time off his pizza beat
Mhm.
to pen us that article. We're gonna have to spend a little time on his pizza beat. Maybe we'll eat a little pizza tonight and write a little article for him. But
Good.
I was at Pinehurst a couple years ago, and thanks to John Deere and the GCSAA, they had me there as a guest, and I got to try the putt that Payne made. We all did, and I burned the lip twice, so I missed it both times. I would have been in a playoff with Phil. And Phil, of course, probably would have kicked my butt because he's a much better golfer than I am. And beyond the greatness of Payne Stewart, I do remember watching news and as broken live and saying the plane of golf legend Payne Stewart is non-responsive. It's
Mhm.
flying and
Yeah,
whatever. I think it was a CO something, some kind of a leak in there, and everybody just kind of passed out, and it was flying
correct,
aimlessly for a while, and
correct.
eventually ran out of fuel and came crashing down and killing everybody aboard. Terrible, terrible incident. He had changed his life.
He had.
When I understand, he was a hard partying, running
Yep.
around kind of guy. Had gotten married, had a couple kids, and was I don't know if he found God or whatever he did, whatever it was. He'd really cleaned himself up, and was a role model to so many. And like you and I, we both were fans of his.
Mhm.
It was devastating when he passed away. It was one of my first sports heroes or whatever that I lost in real time. So yeah, great story by Charlie. Read it. Take a walk down memory lane, kind of an ode to your recent column as well, as far as memory lane goes.
Yes, that's
But
right.
this was kind of a sad memory, sprinkled in with some happy stuff.
Right. Absolutely. And I agree. Yeah, Payne Stewart was I was thinking about Payne Stewart. Well, obviously what stands out about him, of course, was the outfits he wore, the
Yeah.
throwback outfits, the knickers and the knickerbockers and the plus fours as they're called, and of course the flat hat. Looked like a golfer from another time. And I remember I was a fan of his just real quick because he did that, but at the same time he was interesting because he was kind of a merger of old and new. Like he kind of tipped his hat to the past. At the same time, he and this is a little bit pre Tiger Woods. He was kind of that one of the first golfers that I remember watching. He played with a little bit of a brashness and a bravado, as we're talking about too. He was a hard partying guy, and so as a young person watching that, you kind of enjoyed seeing that style. At the same time, to the other point you made, I agree that the great thing about him was though that he did mature. He grew up. He sort of gained a perspective on life, and I think it's powerful to think about his one of the last memories the public has of him is of him embracing Phil Mickelson and congratulating him on the fact that he's going to become a father and tells him to enjoy it and everything. So good
Yeah.
stuff. And yep, be great to. It was nice to kind of relive remembering everything he did for the game through reading Charlie's piece.
That and the NFL had a sponsorship with him. So
Yes,
every Sunday he would wear
yep,
the team colors
I
of the
remember. Yep,
local team, which was fantastic. I know
love
Ben
that.
Curtis then picked up the NFL gauntlet, the Kent State
Great.
great Ben Curtis, a Open Championship winner. He did not wear the plus fours, but he did get the NFL sponsorship for a little while after Payne passed away. But terrific story. And I
Yep.
encourage you, clubresortbusiness.com to go and read it. It's right there at the top there. So look for that, please. But while I have you, let me tell you real quick about our guest, Patricio Misitrano. Not to be confused with minestrone, which is a funny anecdote about that coming from Buenos Aires, Argentina, to North Dakota to play tennis in college. His coach, I'll let you watch the video and let Patricio tell the story. But it was an interesting topic. He is the co-founder of the Sports Haus, which has paddle, pickleball, and indoor golf all under one roof. I
Wow.
believe it was the first facility. This in Norwalk, Connecticut, to combine those three sports. So it's kind of a blueprint of what we're seeing coming around. Paddle and pickle. We're seeing pickleball and golf. We're seeing all these different facilities. This kind of confluence of sports coming together. And
Hmm.
Patricio talks about that as well as the surge in paddle or padel, as some people like to pronounce it, based on its spelling. But it is pronounced paddle from what he told me and Santiago Gomez from a previous podcast. If you want to go back and watch Santiago Gomez from Paddle House, Haus. They're using the German/European spelling. So stick around, Patricio Misitrano, and enjoy. Take care, stay well, have a great day. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have a special guest with us, Patricio Misitrano, co-founder of the Sports Haus. Patricio, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Patricio, thank you for being here. Real quick, give us a little, like an elevator pitch, a 10,000-foot view of what the Sports Haus is.
So the Sports Haus is the first, not only anymore, but the first club in the world that has indoor paddle, indoor pickleball, and golf simulators. We are in the first paddle courts in all of New England, and we have a 35,000 square foot facility in Norwalk, Connecticut.
Well, so massive. Pickle or paddle is getting huge. Paddle's the new pickle, right? So tell us a little bit about paddle. I know we had talked to Santiago Gomez, a mutual friend of ours.
Yep.
And about the Paddle House. But tell us a little bit about paddle, the sport of paddle.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background. I grew up in Argentina playing tennis, other sports as well, and paddle when I was, a teen in the 90s. So a lot of people don't even know that paddle is as old as, actually it was founded in the late 60s. But paddle is a combination between tennis, squash, platform tennis, racquetball, and you can use the walls. You can play the balls of the glass. They used to be concrete walls. Now they changed to glass a few decades ago already. And it's very social. It's very easy to learn. You play with a ball that is very similar to a tennis ball, and then you play with a paddle that has holes and is made out of foam on the inside. And very easy to pick up. The surface, which is one of the key reasons why people like to play, besides the fact that it's social and easy to pick up, is turf. So it's much more friendly on your feet, on your knees, on your back than other racket sports.
So paddle, from what I understand, we always talk about how pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the U.S. Paddle internationally is exploding, and it's coming in a big way to the U.S. Can you talk a little bit about you have a history. Before we get into that, you have a history with some platinum clubs. You've been a director at private clubs. You think that the clubs that aren't taking paddle seriously right now are going to be missing out? Maybe it's going to come in a big way.
Absolutely. I worked at 3 platinum clubs, and as a director of racket, directors of tennis, and we had tennis, platform tennis in the last few years. And I was one of them that didn't really think that pickleball had to be added as one of the offers and to our members. And I was wrong. And then I'm like, okay, I'm wrong. Let's do pickleball. Absolutely. And I think with paddle, it's going to happen exactly the same. There are some clubs that I'm hearing about, private clubs that are looking into getting 1, 2, 3, 4 courts already to their facilities. And I think the ones who wait, they're going to be missing out. And it's going to be similar to pickle. Now, you cannot imagine any rackets program at any private club without pickleball. So in a few years, it's going to be exactly the same. And one of the things that I always say is that the crossover between tennis, pickleball, platform tennis for the clubs that have it, or even squash, help all the other sports. With paddle, it's going to be exactly the same.
So pickle was fairly easy. A lot of people could just set up a net on a tennis court, playing sideways now, go inside the ballroom, do whatever, line it off and go. So pickleball was a real kind of a simple fix.
Yeah.
Now paddle's going to take a little more effort, correct?
And depending how you look at it, and fixing a golf course takes a long time and a lot of money. And even installing a new tennis court takes a lot of time, a lot of real estate, and a lot of money. You can install one paddle court if the foundation is there in 2 or 2.5 days. So that you could argue that is a pretty easy fix. And compared to the cost of a platform tennis court, and maybe a third of the cost of a platform tennis court for paddle courts, there are a lot of little nuances such as, where are you going to install the court on? If you have already a flat surface, the concrete laid out, or if you have, grass, or you have to level the ground. So the site work, it will impact the total cost of the installation. But installing a paddle court, it could be done in 2 or 3 days with only a couple of guys, like 3 or 4 people can easily install one paddle court.
So there are companies currently in the US-based companies that are installing paddle courts, I can imagine.
Yeah, and funny, and we didn't have this conversation before, but I'm actually going to I'm working with a manufacturing company from Spain, because throughout the Sports Haus, and it was about 2 years, from beginning to end, and right now it took a step, aside from the day-to-day operation, and part of the reason was because I wanted to do other things besides managing the club. But I've been reached. I was contacted by so many folks that wanted to learn more about padel, installation of courts, opening clubs, and that I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And now I have on the grounds here in New England, but we would travel other places too, that we would install paddle courts, and we have a manufacturing and company out of Spain, and with over 25 years of experience, but we're gonna have in stock in the US.
Are there any limitations beyond, okay, just like tennis, just like pickleball, snow, obviously it's raining, platform tennis, you can play in the cold,
Yep.
They have the heated base. Are there any limitations to paddle that maybe a GM is not foreseeing that you have to be aware of?
Well, you can play outside as long as, the court is clean. And when I'm talking about clean is, leaves in the fall, so you have to blow them. You have to be a little bit careful with that, because the surface of the court has sand. Depending on the type of turf, you're going to be using a lot more sand. If you look at some courts that look very sandy, that's a different type of turf. When you watch the professionals play, you won't see any sand. You're going to see just like, a solid color. But you have to remove the leaves. You have to remove, some branches. That is one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you have an outdoor court. Then the other one is if the courts are, a little wet, whether it's moisture or it rained, and the glass gets wet, and then the ball bounces funny off the glass. So you have to dry the courts. If you think about a tennis court that you cannot play when it's wet, similar to what would happen with padel, that you cannot play when the turf is wet or when the glass is wet.
Yeah, certainly. We have another mutual friend, Jarrett Chirico, Directors Club. He's down in Dallas now. Royal Oaks, I believe, is his club. What would you say if you sat down with Jarrett, sat down with any of these other Milos Vasovic in Atlanta, sat down with these directors of what would your pitch be to them saying, hey, you're missing out right now on paddle, or their GMs? They need some ammunition going to the GM saying, let's get paddle here. What would you say to them?
So the thing about padel, and it's a very similar argument with pickleball. So you have, I don't know, depending how big your club is, let's just say that your club has 250 members. So some of them play tennis if you offer tennis, some of them play golf, some of them, might play whatever sport you offer. Some of them only play one sport, some of them play all of them. When you offer them multiple types of facilities, you can introduce them in one way, and then the members are going to be using more of your club. If you only have, let's say, one racket sport, just tennis, if you don't like tennis, okay, those members are not using the club, or at least that part of the club. If you have tennis, pickleball, padel, platform tennis, all these different options, they may come through a racket sport via padel, via pickleball, and then they will try the others. And then at the end of the day, you want to have your members enjoy the entire club or as much as possible, and the member satisfaction goes up because they're using the club. They think that they are getting their money's worth, and they will also meet other staff members, other members, and they'll make new friends. Because if you only play golf and all of a sudden you play golf and pickleball, okay, you're going to make a lot of other friends that didn't play golf, but you met them in pickleball. With paddle, it's going to be exactly the same.
You mentioned two excellent points. We're always talking about a rising tide lifts all ships. One racket sport's good for the other, and I mean,
Yep.
pickleball's blown up, but tennis has seen a resurgence and such.
Yep.
And also, the members that are getting value out of their membership are more likely to stay. Retention rates are higher. So excellent points. And I hope that resonates with our GMs out there watching us. I'll get you out on this one, Patricio.
Yeah.
Take your crystal ball out. Look 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, if you would. What do you see with paddle, particularly? And throw in the Sports Haus or similar, right? I can imagine these are going to be growing right along with the sport. So if you can look 5 years, 10 years down the road, what are you seeing with paddle in the club space and beyond?
So I think there's going to be two avenues for the growth of paddle. So one is going to be via clubs like the Sports Haus. You start the club from scratch, or you open, a second location, a third location, and we are looking, in the near future, perhaps to do that. We wanted to have a solid foundation first, and that's what we're, really focusing on our flagship location in Norwalk, Connecticut. But it's not that easy to open a club from scratch, going through, finding location, finding the resources, the financing, and going through the permits, whatever it might be. It's very difficult to go through that route, and it takes time. Can it be done? Of course it can be done, and it's happening right now in the US. There are a lot of new clubs, and it happened the same with pickleball, that a lot of new clubs opened up. I think that the largest growth is going to be done via current clubs that have a piece of real estate, whether it's, I don't want to say tennis, because tennis players or tennis folks get upset. They get upset when you put a pickleball court on a tennis court. So, but I think it's going to happen eventually that this real estate space at a club is going to be repurposed, and you already have the parking, you already have the facilities, you already have the permits, you already have the staff. And then that is how the sport of paddle, I see it growing much more rapidly, that route, that with new clubs. I see both of them, but any club that already has a facility and the space is so much easier to apply for just a permit to install a different type of facility within the club itself.
So tennis players are territorial, and I know they were upset about losing some of their courts, and rightfully so. I get it. You're a tennis player. But one of the complaints about pickleball off of the courts was the noise from the neighbors. Any concerns about that with paddle?
Look, I'm going to tell you one. You're absolutely right about the noise. I would not like to live right next to a pickleball court, but I would like to play on a pickleball court. So with paddle, I'm going to say that the big difference between paddle, and this is important, and in how you lay out your courts, because the nice thing about paddle, and not that it's not noisy, because you hit the ball and then it makes noise, and it's different than tennis. And there are a lot more frequent hits, which is also the issue with pickleball. So there are a lot of frequent hits, and more than tennis. In tennis, the court is much longer. So by the time one player hits it, then the other player hits it, it takes longer, so there are less hits. But the paddle courts, a lot of the court itself, it's a wall, which prevents the noise to travel. So when you have pickleball courts and paddle courts, the way you lay them out, it makes an impact. It's not definitely not as noisy as pickleball, but having the walls prevents a lot of the noise to go outside into other areas. And if you have an area that you really don't want, that area to be, bothered with noise, then make sure that the back of the court is facing that side.
All right, excellent point. Thank you for clarifying that for us. Hey, how can people get a hold of you? They want to learn more information about the Sports Haus. They want to learn more information about installing paddle at their club. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the Sports Haus, our website is sports.haus, it's with the German/European spelling. So they can, go to our website. We have Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram profiles, so they can reach out to anyone, from the Sports House via our social channels and profiles. And me, I like to use LinkedIn a lot. So if they can, my name, Patricio Misitrano, and then they reach out to me via LinkedIn, then I'm very active on LinkedIn. I like to see what's out there. I saw, I see your posts. I follow your, club and resort business there too. And LinkedIn is probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Fantastic. I will be sure to tag you in this post when it goes live on Friday afternoon and stays live. I really appreciate your time, and it's not minestrone. So we got that correct.
Yeah.
Hopefully I didn't butcher your name.
Yeah, Patricio Misitrano. You didn't butcher my name, and I, for the ones who don't know, that was what my first coach, my college coach, called me during the introduction of my first tennis game, and I didn't know it was a soup back then.
Well, hey, we all have like lost in translation, right? From Argentina to North Dakota, there's bound to be something lost in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Patricio, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.